The Cowboys game got 40 million.
Mm.
Wild card games don't get 40 million.
That is. So you're saying those numbers are cooked up?
Hard to say for sure.
I mean, the Cowboys do traditionally do a lot better than everybody
Yeah,
else.
but the
The Lord
Cowboys
knows
were in the
why.
wild card weekend last year, but they I mean, they didn't get 40 million.
How much more was it than the rest of the games that weekend? Do you have those numbers?
The Cowboy game or
Mhm.
the Peacock game?
The Cowboy game
Cowboy game was the
last
high,
year
for sure. Last year, I
compared to the
believe
other wild card weekend games.
I don't have that breakdown on my at my
I'd
fingertips,
be curious.
but I remember it being in the low 30s.
Right, so 40, that's a huge jump.
And I'm not claiming that number is cooked. I actually believe is not quite the right word. See, here's the thing with at least those numbers, when it's not exclusively on a platform like Peacock or Netflix or Amazon,
You're
at
not
least,
relying on one source to report.
absolutely. That's the problem.
But the other thing that's strange about that is that game was a blowout from the beginning. So
Mhm.
would more people have tuned in out of Cowboy hatred as it went along?
Or shock.
Mm.
I
Mm.
was
Oh yeah, like you get a text like, "Yo, check out the game. What's happening? You won't believe this," kind of a thing.
Yeah, totally. That kind of happened with me the day before. I was in my basement. I was putting together these shelves. So I wasn't watching the Texans game,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and my girlfriend said, like, we call the CJ Stroud braided wonder. He's like, he's kicking their ass.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that they were beating the crap. That wasn't the Steelers. That was
Browns.
the Browns. They're beating the crap out of the Browns. I had no idea, and I watched the rest of the game
Mm.
because I was like, this is shocking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I can certainly see a tune-in factor with the Cowboys, especially because of the hatred, as you mentioned, and because of their profile.
Mm-hmm.
They are one of a handful of national NFL teams, truly
I'm
national NFL teams.
I'm curious to get your take on why that has sustained over what's really a 30 plus year period of
Longer than that.
irrelevance.
Longer than that.
I
Much longer than
mean,
that.
like, no, irrelevance is what I'm saying. In terms of
Yeah.
the actual product on the field, I don't understand
Irrelevant.
how he's managed to keep that brand such a high profile when really the game. I mean, they are the definition of all sizzle, no steak, and I just don't get it. I don't understand why. I mean, I think it's because it was so successfully branded in the past
Mhm.
that maybe you have generations of people all
Without a
over the
doubt.
country who like to root for them. And also, now that I think about it from a marketing perspective, the Thanksgiving game probably helps a lot
That's
every
huge.
year.
Yeah.
Like just draw people in because they're fucking watching it, at
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
That's certainly huge. I think the Thanksgiving game is a big part. I think certainly the stars that they've had go through there have been immense, and I think that's a big part as well. I think you mentioned generations of fans.
Mhm.
Absolutely. For a very long time, they were really the only team in the South, or one of a very
That's
few.
right. That's right. I forgot about that. Yes, that is. I've been told that before. That
And
anywhere down there, you would have just by default rooted for the Cowboys.
yeah, I think their fan base is extra large for that fact. Not alone, but that's a big one. I think also their branding's really great. Look, their jerseys are
Their
fantastic. Their
logo
logo's amazing. The fact that their stadium, both of their last two stadiums, this stadium and the last one, both incredibly unique. You
and
had go ahead.
sorry, and the owner's a character which you don't see anywhere else. He's
Precisely.
the NFL's George Steinbrenner. Which who was it who just made that comparison? I just watched somebody And apologies to whoever that is because it was Michael Hawley
Okay.
compared him to Steinbrenner, which the NFL doesn't have that. Al Davis was that
Sure.
before,
Yeah.
but it
It,
doesn't have character in its ownership. So,
yeah.
but I
And
mean, as
maybe,
far as the product,
yeah.
oh
Well,
my god,
well, well. I mean, look, they haven't been. They weren't the Bills, or even like the Browns. This new version of the Browns, where they were never good. During this 30-year stretch, they have been never good enough, which does add to the drama of it.
yes,
You're kind of waiting for them to self-destruct.
yes. I think for people who don't like them,
Yeah,
it increases their profile. You know, Michael Smith, Michael Hawley's broadcast partner,
sure.
said, "I would rather have a team be a laughing stock than this." He was like going on. He's like, "This is like a sick joke." He was really
Uh,
animated about it. He's like, "This, I don't understand what would motivate people to subject themselves to this kind of suffering." He said, "You have to be masochistic."
as a masochistic Bills fan, I, the man doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Well, he admitted he gave up on the Saints after 2 playoff losses. He grew up as a Saints fan, and he gave up on them after 2. He got his heart broken twice. He
How,
said, "That's enough." And then he got into broadcasting, and that you weren't supposed to be a fan back in the day when he came in. So
how about losing 4 Super Bowls in a
I
row?
I understand.
Having
I
the
understand.
biggest star in the history of your team, being accused of double murder, probably did do it, and then having the highest winning percentage of a decade, never winning the Super Bowl, and then having the biggest heartbreak moment in playoff history up to that point, probably up to the Falcons when they're gag up in the Super Bowl, and then
Dot
not
dot
making
dot.
not the drought, not making the playoffs for 17 years. But I mean, look, I think there's an argument there that the Cowboys have been highly disappointing. But myself, the Lions fans, the Browns fans, I
Sure.
know a lot of football fans, the freaking San Diego
Oh
slash
god.
LA Chargers. I mean, like
Ugh.
there's a lot of fan bases that I think I would gladly take trade places with the Cowboys. I want
Jacksonville is
Jacksonville's
another
another
one.
one, certainly.
Yeah.
I don't know that as a Bills fan I'd want to trade places with them,
No, no,
but
no.
certainly
Jacksonville would trade places with the Cowboys. Is a fan base that would.
Jacksonville would.
Yeah, yeah.
Jacksonville
That's
certainly would. Yeah.
right to your point. But here's the
I mean,
thing.
they're at the point where they've lost 2 games a year. They play 2 games a year in London.
Mhm. Sure, sure.
I mean, it's if you are a diehard Jag fan, you got to be like, what the hell?
Mhm,
You're gonna play 2 games a year in London, 2 home games in London, and then extort my city for a new
mhm,
stadium?
mhm.
Like, and then like, hey, ain't I great? You you got
Well,
6 games?
the I guess what I was
Sorry.
what I feel no, 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 it's okay. Um, is since the 2 dynasties, so like the '70s
Sure.
Cowboys and then the '90s Cowboys, just the mediocrity
Mhm.
and the underachieving is just kind of gross, though. And I can see where Smith is coming from. It's like there's something about always sort of being on the verge, and then he said, this team will find new and creative ways to let you down, and they
He's
did. They
right.
just did it the other day.
He's
But I
right.
didn't. I wasn't surprised. I've been saying for years. I posted about the Cowboys right after they lost. They're not going to win shit as long as Jerry Jones is alive, and you can
Yeah.
book that.
Well, as long as Jerry Jones is running the team the way he's choosing to now.
Which he's clearly not going to yield from doing that because he had a golden opportunity, or one would presume, to make a change, and he's going with the status quo. There's no way in hell you keep that coach. I mean, this guy cannot stay away from the microphone. And then I've heard multiple sportscasters speculate whether he's been lying all along about wanting to win so bad that this has all actually been a big marketing ruse, that he's just playing
Eh,
that role just
I don't
because he
think so.
knows he's laughing all the way to the bank. I don't know.
No, no. I think
He
that's
looks sincere to me.
yeah. I think he does actually want to win. I do think when you look at the history of sports, patient guys win more than impatient guys.
Mm, interesting. That's a really I've never. That's really curious.
If you are constantly firing your coach, if there's constant turnover in the philosophy of your team, the philosophy of your management, you're going to be bad,
Mhm,
or at least unstable at
mhm.
minimum. And I give you stability. The Ravens are the perfect example. Ironically, we're talking about a team that ripped their team away from Cleveland and moved to Baltimore. And they've been under basically the same management team since 99,
I was gonna say early 2000s, but yeah, okay.
98. We're talking a few years before they won that first Super Bowl
Mhm.
with Jamal Lewis and company, Trent Dilfer, Ray Lewis, of course,
Shannon
Ed
Sharp.
Reed, Shannon Sharp. So you had you have stability of management, you have philosophy, you have an archetypal players.
And
So you
culture and a culture, yes,
they
archetype
all fit in
like a yeah, and a certain, like you said, a certain archetype of a player,
there.
um, type of player and model system also for
Yeah.
those players.
A similar one is the Steelers.
Mm,
Um, they've won, I believe, 6 titles, and they've had 3 coaches in a half century.
right. I still definitely think they should make a change, but there are very few
And
people in media.
maybe it is time to make a change. I wouldn't say you're wrong on that one. It's a matter of time, you know, when you pull the plug. I don't know that the game is so much past Tomlin by. Maybe they just need a new voice.
Mm,
But even when you look at the 3 coaches they had, their voices are similar.
mhm.
They were all similar choices too. They were all young defensive coordinators.
Yeah, you always think of a certain style, like, you definitely think of a team identity in terms of how they approach the game, period, when you think
Mhm.
of the Steelers, which is a great thing.
And when you think of the Cowboys, Roger Staubach,
Mm,
Troy Aikman,
mhm,
Dandy Don Meredith, um, Tony Romo, and now a Dak. You have this sort of flashy-ish star quarterback.
mhm,
Um, always excellent um, skill position guys. Like even kind of the Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland kind of fit that too, of that flashy cornerback.
mhm,
Through the annals of Cowboys history, it's a similar kind of guy that they're looking for. Obviously, it has not been as successful recently for the first half of the first half of Super Bowls. They were incredibly. You mentioned
mhm.
2 dynasties and a ton of playoff success in between, and this for the second half, not so much. Like I think mathematically, thinking about it analytically, you're keeping things as stable as possible is a positive.
Mm.
But I do think it is a negative to have ownership so involved
Oh
with
my g
choosing. I mean, Jerry's the GM, and I hope that when Steven takes over at some point, and his daughter Charlotte, um, that they've learned the lesson that, hey, we should have not only football guys, but kind of have a bit of distance from the day-to-day decision making.
Yeah, and I
They
mean,
come in and help with the big decisions. That's what they do in Philadelphia. That's
mm,
part of been part of their success over the last few decades as well.
seems to be working.
They've been a bit more unstable in the last few years, but in terms of their team success, they've
Mhm.
been regularly successful, I'd say, since what, 98, 99? When did Andy Reid get there? Around then?
Around then, yeah. You said something about the Cowboys. Michael Hawley said he thinks the players buckle under the weight of the myth. That because they get convinced because it comes from the top, and I've heard lots of
Sure.
commentators say this, like, you've got the owner out there spouting off every week. He's the only owner that does that,
Yeah.
and eclipses the attention that the head coach gets, right? So, this is a person who is likely, if not incapable, really not amenable to having a coach who is going to take the attention away from him. We've seen that
Mhm.
we know this is what happens, right? Or at least a surface read of it. He couldn't handle Jimmy Johnson being such a big personality, Bill Parcells, etc. Um, so, like, because they get hear from the owner, it's like they're psyching themselves out. And you got Micah Parsons on his podcast. These guys get wrapped up in the whole myth of it, and then can't deliver in these big moments. I think there's something to that. I mean, I'm not a sports psychologist, but they because I mean, because Michael Smith was saying you cannot account for how badly that team plays. Talent is not the issue.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's like, holy shit. And they got rolled. like that final score, the Packers just stopped caring because the game was in hand. But I mean, it was 48-16 in going into the fourth quarter.
Sure.
God damn. That was and so that's why it's like this brand to me is almost it's almost a joke. I posted that they're the Harlem Globetrotters of the NFL, only without the humor, charm, or entertainment value. No, obviously the ratings
Yeah.
attest otherwise that they
They're
entertain the
they're
shit out of people.
they're entertaining. And watching their house of cards of that team with a glass jaw that they keep building over and over again uh, fall down on the face is a rating success. I mean,
Mm.
it is a similar thing, honestly, sadly, and hopefully it ends now this weekend with my Bills. They become a ratings draw by watching America watching them get close, but so far. That
But
is
but I
part of the draw of of teams, especially in football.
But I don't think with the Bills it's necessarily with this motivated by Schadenfreude
Mhm.
as it is with the Cowboys, wouldn't you say?
No, it's not the same level. It's not the same level of Schadenfreude. No, but it is that sort of. Are they going to get over the top this time? And I think there's some level of that with both teams.
Sure. Sure. And I think it
Um,
gets in their heads too. Yeah.
sure. I think I don't obviously there's no way to know for sure the game's tomorrow night, but um I think the thing with the Cowboys and the Bills that have been similar in this iteration is learning to win dirty and not win by cheating, but not win pretty.
Yeah,
The
not win in a
Cowboys,
glamorous way. Yeah.
yeah, the Bills have been over the last few years a team that when they win, they beat the crap out of you, and then when they lose by a hair.
Mhm.
Now they've learned how to win in a number of different ways, and that's something that this iteration of the Cowboys has to learn as well. The trouble is they're at the end of a money cycle.
Mm.
They have a bunch of big contracts that are coming up shortly, and they're going to have to not gut that roster, but probably slim it down
Mm.
and start over at a lot of different spots.